Welcome to the Money Maven Project podcast. If you're here to learn how to obtain freedom over your time and money through real estate investing, you're in the right place. Create the life you want by living with intention and becoming a maven in mindset, money, and real estate. Now, here's your host, Justin Monk.
Hey, this is Justin Monk with the Money Maven Project podcast. Super excited today. We have Elise Knaack on with us from Deal Machine. She's going to talk to us a little bit about what it takes to find deals through the different efforts that they support. We'll learn a lot about that today. But before we get started, why don't you give us a little bit of a background, kind of your history and how you ended up where you are today?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Justin. Really excited to be here and excited to be with all of you. So I have only been in the real estate investing world for about 2 years. My background's in fashion. I went to school for fashion, and then I ended up going into a direct sales job for custom clothing. And that's where I learned a lot about sales. I did 84 dials a day cold calling. It was a lot. And I didn't realize how well it would transfer over into real estate investing. Yeah. But I got to know Deal Machine actually through David, our CEO. I was the fifth hire with the Deal Machine, and they were just getting up and running. They wanted someone that wanted to be committed to their customers. And I love building relationships. So I was like, sure, but I knew nothing about real estate investing. I didn't understand why you wanted to look for the ugly houses. It really didn't correlate with me. Mm-hmm. But from there, I went to helping with onboarding. I was our support chat for a while, just myself. And then we outgrew that. And then my job's basically morphed into doing our social media, connecting with our community. And now my title is the Director of Community Experience. So I just want everyone to feel a part of what we call the Deal Machine family, whether we work for you or not. If we can help you in any way, we want to be able to do that and build that ecosystem of just people who are there to support one another.
Yeah, I love that. And so the basic, why was Deal Machine started? What niche is it trying to fill?
So that you don't forget to follow up with the person. All you TikTokers, like the oh no, that's you driving past the house knowing you forgot to follow up with them and you saw someone else sold it.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what happened to our CEO. He literally forgot. He was driving for dollars, was writing stuff down on paper, spending the time to look it up through the county records. And he just forgot to follow up on a house, and he drove past it and it sold. And he was like, crap.
Yeah.
Now, he has a computer engineering background. So he literally in a weekend threw together Deal Machine just for himself. Like, he didn't do it for anyone else. And then friends started being like, dude, I want this. And he slapped it up on the Apple Store, and everybody started downloading it. And he was like, oh, I guess this is something. So him and actually one of his childhood friends they've done businesses together. He's our CTO. Amazing job. He's also Dave. So we have David and Dave, the Daves. But that just kind of morphed from there. So it was to help people originally with just mail marketing, having it to be drip campaigns, getting those campaigns going so that you take that lack of follow through off the table. I mean, we're all so busy. So, and it was also to make driving for dollars easier. So you literally could tap on the property, know the information, and just send mail directly right there and not waste time, because time is so valuable. So it still is to save people time. And I think that's our general kind of mission, is to save people time and make them successful.
Yeah. That's huge. So there's a lot of things in that explanation. In fact, just the other day, I was driving to sign papers on a refinance for one of my Burr properties in Ohio. So we're on the way there, and we blow past this, I think it was 3 4-plexes that are just run down. They need work. And I'm like, I've never seen that property before. And sure enough, I mean, I didn't actually stop. So this isn't a very good story, but I'm like, well, now that I have Deal Machine in my pocket, I can basically just tap that property. I don't have to be there. I can pull it up now, tap the property, put it in, and now start basically a mail campaign that then has an automated follow-up process after based on what I select. So very good tool. I'm pretty excited. I'm just starting to use it, and I've been pretty impressed so far, not only with the tool, but also the support that I'm getting. And this is not intended to be a sales pitch for Deal Machine, but well, we have to clarify that this is a pretty awesome tool. And I come from, so my main gig, I manage a sales team of solar sales professionals. So we're bringing in whatever 80 or something leads a week from the internet campaigns and the Facebook and all that stuff, and been doing it for 10 years. And probably our biggest loss of revenue is not following up on deals, on leads. And all the time when we finally get an organized effort to go back to some of these leads that are 3 or 4 years old, we call them up and they're like, oh yeah, I installed 2 years ago, or I installed last month, or whatever. And I have not sat down to calculate the lost revenue from poor follow-up, but I know it's a lot. And that's why I'm not going to calculate it, because I don't want to know. But I'm a firm believer in the sales world, and that's basically what we're in here. We are selling the idea of buying these people's homes. There's money in the follow-up. So consistent long-term follow-up. You follow up till either they die or we die, but that's obviously, we don't really mean that, but we want to follow up for as long as we have to. And I love the example of him driving by, I think it was Dave, driving by a property that he had been working and not, it's sold and he wasn't the buyer. So it's a great example. There is money in the follow-up regardless of what you're doing, and especially obviously in real estate. So what a great tool.
Oh, and that's what's brought on to him. He lost that one, but what I think also separates us is it's built by a real estate investor. A lot of technology now is built to be built because it's like, oh, it's a good idea. But this was built by a real estate investor for his own personal use. So David still uses it. He has a team of drivers. He has BRRRR properties, and he's building his portfolio. So I think that really helps us in being even more relatable, is because we hear the stories from David. Some of us ourselves send out marketing campaigns, wholesale as well. So we really try to know what our members are going through so that we can make this the best product.
Yeah, perfect. And so aside from Deal Machine, when you see people fail in making a mail campaign work or a driving for dollars campaign work, when people fail at that, why are the reasons? What are the common 2 or 3 reasons that you're seeing?
I think a lot of your people who have been in sales have heard all of these probably before, but the no's, just constantly getting no's. I know from myself, I've gotten numerous callbacks from my marketing campaigns, and not one deal has closed because of some reason or another. And it's very disheartening and I know you can probably relate to that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But I think people need to realize that more and kind of accept that and realize that doesn't mean it's the end. We've had I do success calls with people who do deals with Deal Machine. And I can't tell you how many times I grinded for 6 months and I got a deal. And because they were consistent, and we kind of talked about that before, it's the consistency. Then it was like tenfold. The phones kept ringing, and it took the 6 months, but because they were so diligent in it and they didn't give up, that is what made them successful. So it's the persistence and the self-motivation that when that lacks or dies off, or that's usually when people fall off, or they kind of give up on it, which is totally understandable. That's not dismissing those feelings, but knowing when to recharge or how to recharge that mindset, because we're human, like it's going to happen.
Yeah. Staying motivated on it. So, I'm sure it's common, and I'm sure you see it even with the clients that you have for Deal Machine, of they send out 1,000 pieces of mail a couple of times, and they're like, well, that didn't work or whatever. It didn't, I got one response and they said no eventually. So I'm just done. Like, what do you say to somebody to, how do you encourage them to just keep going? Because the follow-up is where it's at.
There's a couple of things, but I will say the big thing is you have to say it's a numbers game, one, because everyone can resonate with that, especially if they've listened to the gurus and gurus of the real estate investing. It's all a numbers game. So what I first say is, how many times are you hitting them? Because you could send out 1,000 postcards, but is that 1,000 to 1,000 properties and you're only hitting them once?
Right.
Because then the consistency isn't there. The follow-up isn't there. If you're not doing mail marketing and you're doing cold calling, well, I've been cold calling these leads. Well, how many times have you cold called them? Are you cold calling them multiple times? How many touch points do you have? That's mainly my biggest one I touch on, is just how many touch points have you had? If it's less than 3 to 7, you need to pump it up, and you need to be patient, because there's going to be that person who holds on to that postcard, puts it on their fridge, and 4 months from now, they're going to be like, hey, I wasn't ready then, but I am now. And I think that's why I personally like mail marketing more, because it's tangible. And we're in such a digital world now. You could call me and I would forget about it or lose it or delete the number or something. Yeah. But if I have a piece of mail that has my frickin' house stamped on the front of it, like, it's going to catch my attention and I'm going to hold on to it.
Yeah.
So that's what I say. A couple of things too, if people say that they don't feel like their mail marketing's working, I say, if you have a logo on it, mix it up and put a smiley picture of yourself on it. See if that will change how people react to you. Change different colors, maybe the wording. And we can go into that more later if you want, but there's just some things that you can do to make your marketing stand out from other investors.
Yeah. And honestly, that's one thing that I feel when I'm putting these campaigns together. I'm like, I know I'm not the only guy doing this. And I know I'm not the only piece of mail going to their mailbox from a real estate investor. So I get a little discouraged. I'm like, how am I ever going to bust through, and how am I ever going to stand out? So maybe give us some tips of things that you've seen work on direct mail pieces to get through that barrier.
Oh, for sure. Super easy. I even have tutorials of how to take a headshot if you're like, I don't have a headshot, because don't put a picture of yourself cropped out from a group picture. It doesn't look professional. Change the colors on all of our postcards, because a lot of people will just keep the default. And you said it's not going to, people do use us, so it does not set you apart. Make sure, I would say, changing the wording, write it like you would almost a letter to a friend. That's been huge for a lot of people, though. Just as small as saying, I'm a local investor in Indianapolis. Or I live in, every city has kind of their pockets of little sectors. So I'd say like, oh, I live in the Fountain Square area. I drove past your house. Actually saying you drove past their house makes it seem a little less creepy. They're still probably going to be a little creeped out you took a picture.
Yeah.
But I would say that, and I've seen a huge amount of success if you put a picture of yourself with your family, with your dog, with your cat, your camel, whatever you have. If it is something that makes you seem, because you have to think too, is a lot of, and people have literally said, they called me and said, like the little old lady, and be like, you know what, I saw the picture of you and your family and I felt comfortable calling you out of everyone.
Wow. Yeah,
and that is not the first time I've heard it. And I've seen real estate investors, if you do the regular like headshot, try doing something like, I'm going to call out one of our members, Sean Hudson. He like is sitting on a bench, just like kind of like, hey friend, how's it going? And that it looks so welcoming. I'd be like, oh, I want to, because it's all about trust. They need to trust you.
Yeah.
It's a huge, scary thing you're asking them to do. And they don't know anything about cash. Like, I would also say that's another thing. Try to stick away from saying like, we buy houses cash, or like those lines that are used a lot, because they almost start to sound a little scammy. So if you say you're a local family owned investing like firm there or company, that tends to make people feel a little bit more relaxed and more comfortable to call you or text you back. But those are the big things. Now, on the other side, I will say I've had people who have used our default cards and haven't put anything on it, but they send a crap ton of mail and they get it. That's why.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. That's a good point. I love the idea of the picture of the profile picture, family, dog, or maybe whatever you're hiking a mountain, or I don't know, like something that's going to like catch their attention a little bit, because they're going to get so much mail, especially if, it's a hot market. There's other investors mailing these people, and it's going to be the one that hits the right day, right, where they're in the right mood to sell. So that's why consistency is huge, and one that they like enough and gets their attention enough that it makes it to the fridge, or maybe even the junk drawer in the kitchen, but at least sticks around, right?
Yeah. It's a 4x6 card. Like, they have photos they put in an album. So like, it's not going to take up a huge amount of space. They can it's your business card. That's what I always think of it like. That's your business card you're handing them. So that's a way for it to, stand out. And I even say for people who cold call, don't totally miss out on the mail marketing, because I always like to reference that. I feel like it makes it almost lukewarm too if you call and say, I sent you this piece of mail. And even if they didn't get it yet, it shows that you put more effort than just calling them out of the blue.
Yeah. Do you have people that are using Deal Machine for larger multifamily properties? And how does it change? I mean, the message might change. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe still that really personal message is what gets attention. I don't know. Because if you get too professional or business-like, you also sound very robotic too. So what are some tips that you see on the larger multifamily scale?
Yeah, so I'd say it's pretty much the same. I see people that don't really change the wording much between the two. The biggest campaigns I see, if you're wanting to separate out campaigns, is I see like a absentee landlord campaign, and then there's like the owner occupied campaign. That way you can make it a little less like the owner occupied's less, I want to buy your house and take the home you're living out of. It's more, I'd make that when I say I try to help people in my area with financial difficulties. And that way it doesn't sound so much like I want to take your home. But the tired landlord is definitely a great campaign to do too. And for multifamily, I would put it in my tired landlord absentee campaign, because you're going to hit something there with them saying like, are you a tired landlord? Do you own this property? Would you like someone to take this over for you? Yeah. And it kind of hits a little differently. But yeah, I had a guy who just got a 5-unit on top of a liquor store, like with a postcard. So he said he just makes it very personal, and he says he's local, and that's what got the guy to call him back. It was an older gentleman.
Yeah. Do you have anybody, or have you seen anybody use specifically seek landlords that are willing to do an owner finance deal? Do they ever put that right in the message, and has that been successful?
So some people will put it in there as an option. I have not personally seen someone just go directly off of that, but they do try to put the options in there a lot. The trend I'm seeing right now is a lot of real estate agents are coming in to do wholesaling, because they can give them the creative financing. They can give them the putting it on the MLS. I mean, it's kind of like you're getting a Swiss Army knife of things to do. So the owner financing, would just kind of be in the arsenal, and they could give that as a reason, but they usually just try to say, we want to help. I haven't seen too many into what they could actually do. They just try to get them to call them.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of people that are investing out of state. So for me, right, I live in Utah, I invest in Ohio. So I'm not driving around for dollars and using the app to drop or to find properties. But I was on Clubhouse the other day listening to some tips about direct mail, and a lady was talking about Deal Machine, and she mentioned virtual driving for dollars. So I guess that's basically using whatever Google Earth, getting on the street view and just going down the streets and just looking both ways and grabbing the addresses. Tell us more about how that can work.
I feel like virtual driving for dollars is my baby. Like I've done it so much, and we released it right before lockdown. Like we didn't know that it was happening, but it just happened that did. And I was like, oh, I got to learn this. Like this is going to be a thing. Yeah. And it's just like what you said, you get a Chrome extension that links up to your Deal Machine account. You just go on Google Earth. And what's great about Google Earth is you can put those pockets. So I can say this neighborhood I want to go to, and it geofences it out. So then I just go street to street and I just work my way up, and it previews you 5 houses that you're looking at on the street, and you can just click, 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 all added. And if you already have it in your system, it's not going to add it for you.
Yeah,
I've had people hire drivers to do that, VAs to just do virtual driving for dollars, hundreds of properties in an hour.
Yeah, that was what came to my head. I'm like, well, because I have my main thing, right? I'm selling solar, but I'm like, I can hire a virtual assistant to sit wherever they are and drive for dollars in Ohio, and we can just plug these properties in so quickly. So, and I'm assuming that they're still looking for the signs, right? Of distress. And then I'm assuming that once you get that list into Deal Machine, you can then go through and say, all right, who's the absentee, right? You can find out which properties are absentee owners, put them into different campaigns because the message is going to be a little bit different, and then blow out your mail pieces. Is that right?
Yeah. So you can actually make straight up presets of, like, say you want absentee sold over 3 years ago. Like you can filter that all out, put them in a list, smack on a campaign and get it going, and it'll just go. And you can even filter by where you got the leads. So even if you do drive in Utah or anything, you can filter it by what was from the Chrome extension, and it'll show you everything that was added. That helps with your KPIs too, to know. I know people who are listening are probably like, well, Google pictures, like they're taken maybe 5 years ago. The house probably doesn't look the same.
Yeah.
I will say, as much as I'm a fan of virtual driving, obviously real-time driving is going to be more beneficial to you because a tree could have fallen on it last week and you saw it.
Very true.
But I love virtual driving for dollars because you can do your detective work in there, because as the owner of the account, when you have the drop down and you click on the property, you'll see the sale date. You'll see if it's absentee or owner occupied right there. So you can say, oh, this hasn't sold since 89. I'm going to bet that it doesn't look any better than this right now.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like, and you can do a time lapse from past Google photos to see if it's gotten worse or if it's gotten better.
Yeah.
So there's different ways. I've talked to a lot of people. We don't have hardcore stats on how many it takes to add. But the thing is, it is faster. And honestly, we're talking about like being motivated. You can't just say, oh, it's dark out, it's raining, it's snowing here in Indiana. Mm-hmm. I can't go driving for dollars. There's no excuse.
Yeah.
Leads are leads. It's a numbers game.
I agree. And yeah, I mean, I could be doing that while I'm watching the Super Bowl this weekend or whatever.
I do it while I watch football every Sunday when it was on. Like I literally had my boyfriend and I was like, hey, yo, we're driving. Let's go.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. What are some other, as people get into the direct mail side of things, what are some other tips that you give them? We've got consistency, not getting beat up by the nose, and some ideas on how to design the pieces. What are some other mindset things that you see that limit people's belief in that this is going to work, and how do you help them overcome that?
Yeah, so you have to think about kind of another tip for the mail. Don't do it too frequently. And what I mean by that is don't send it out maybe every 2 weeks, because 1, you're going to drain the bank. And 2, like it's not going to make that much of a difference if you do it 2 weeks or 30 days. And I would suggest our default on Deal Machine is 21 days. But I would even say if you're really on a budget and you need to make sure you're hitting that, do 30 days. 9 days is not going to make a difference. But that's another reason why you need to be patient, especially if you're on the mail marketing. If I see that you're sending it out every 30 days and it's only hit twice, you have to give it more time, because timing's everything, like we kind of talked about. And if you're impatient for it, not to be kind of a hard ass, but then do something else. If you want to you can go door knocking. I mean, I would stay 6 feet back after you knock on the door, but you can do that. You can do cold calling, you can do texting. But the nice thing about the marketing is it is consistent. You don't have to do that. Cold calling sucks time. And with texting, we do have that now. But again, it takes time to do it. And it does get you the auto response, but marketing has time and time again, mail marketing has always worked. But you have to be patient with it. And yes, when people say it's been 6 months, I look at their market. If you are on the West Coast, if you are in any metropolitan city, you will need to add more leads than someone from a rural town in Indiana.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to hit them more because, like you said, they're getting marketed to by so many people in those markets. And I know inventory is low right now. And so like, you just need to hit them. You just need to put more in. And that's the hardest thing is I noticed that when you start to get discouraged, especially driving for dollars, since you're having to put the work in to put them in, that tends to go back. And if you're not being consistent with not just the mail marketing, but putting leads in, your pipeline's going to dry up real quickly. So it's hard, but I try to tell them to make a process. So I made like a really, really rough Excel calendar and was like, just put Mondays, approving mail, Tuesdays from 2 to 4, you're driving for dollars. For the week, you have to get a minimum of 70 properties. And it's just holding yourself accountable to that schedule and not, and putting it in your calendar. Cause I'm a person that I'll put it on a list, but if it's not scheduled in, I won't do it.
Yeah.
So if you're like that and you're not type A, you're going to have to do that. And you're just going to have to tell yourself. And again, so many people have told me, well, I was driving past this place and I couldn't pull over. And so I drove past it. And then I was like, no, I have to go back. And the guy drove back. He added it. A week later, he got a call off the mailer. If he would have driven by, he would have never gotten it.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So give us a couple of examples, maybe some success stories in the direct mail, and that was a good one, but give us a couple of other ones. And particularly maybe one of them being like one that's taken like maybe after a long time, finally getting some deals from it, or maybe you've heard like how long some of the longest deals take. Like, is it a couple of years before they respond? Is it a year? Like how long can it sometimes take?
Yeah, I just had a lady, shout out Amy. She got the call in February. It was a long drawn out process. She literally got it last February, the call. She just closed on it in December.
Wow.
So, but she made $87,000.
Wow.
And that blew my mind. And so like, it was a long drawn out, like it was probate, but it hadn't hit probate yet. I mean, it's all the things. But the son got her letter and she had been marketing a lot and she's in the West Coast. And she had called me. She had been one of the ones that called me and was like, I'm spending a lot here.
Yeah.
And I'm not seeing a whole lot from it. And she kept with it 6, 7, 8 months, whatever it was, to get it actually done. And she ended up splitting it with the seller's son to help him out with finances.
Wow.
And so our members are just fabulous. I'll rant about them all day, but, or rave about them.
Yeah.
But, that one. And then I'll tell you personally, I did not get a call off a mailer for 5 months. And I got a call and the gentleman, his father was just very sick and he wanted to sell it. That deal did fall through, but I still kept in contact with him. He ended up, unfortunately, going to jail. So it's very difficult in Indiana but I'm in contact with his daughter, and like we've chatted. So that's one. Another one of like not giving up on your goals is that a gentleman was driving. He said he needed 25 properties every day. Him, his son, his wife were all driving. He was so tired. He was like, I have 15 properties. I don't want to add 25. He did. And out of those last 10, he got a call off of a postcard, and they locked it up and they made 15K. Anyways, it's just, they're long. I've heard even for cold calling, gentlemen waited 6 months of just adding leads, doing mail, following up, doing all that stuff. And he was kind of the guy I based that off of earlier, is that after that, it was like constant, ripple effect of he had done all of this work and it just starts going. I think the thing that discouraged people is not only the not having any lead calls and stuff like that. It's I'm spending a lot of freaking money on this mail.
Yeah.
And I'm not seeing a whole lot. And I get that completely. Because I also budget for my mail. The machine does not pay for my mail to go out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I have to say, like, is a 55-cent postcard, really, like, that's going to go pay tenfold if I get a deal, when I get a deal, that's going to do that. And I'm a great example of not being consistent, because I'm more passionate about Deal Machine itself than I am about real estate investing. But if I were to buckle down, I know I'd get a deal because I see it every day. I had a 20-year-old that just made 15K off of 2 deals. And like, he's going, there's just, you can do it whenever. There's no excuses.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, direct mail obviously works because we always hear these stories. I mean, and there's companies, there's real estate investing companies out there that are doing whatever, like 25,000 pieces a month. Like, it's ridiculous. And they're also flipping a lot of properties or picking up a lot of properties. So it works regardless of how sometimes saturated we might think it is, or whatever our excuse is, right? It definitely works. And I think you've kind of proven that to us today. I love that. You may or may not be able to answer this question, but I'm betting you have some insight to maybe the markets where direct mail is working better, or you're seeing emerging markets. I'm sure all my listeners want to know where people are headed, and maybe you can or can't share that. But what are you seeing trend-wise out there right now?
So I do see more people going to mail marketing, and it's not necessarily which market. I think all of them are going to end up doing it more, only because regulations are coming into place for RVMs. I've already gone into place for that. Texting. A lot of these things are being more regulated, and mail marketing is always going to be there.
Yeah, the postal service always wants some mail to carry, right? That's how they say.
They definitely want us to send mail.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard of any market that's necessarily going to be the next hot one. I just see with the trends that are happening, more people are going to go back to mail marketing, because it's just you're going to get one more hurdle over the next with texting, cold calling, things like that. Because if you have cold calling, you're eventually going to have to hire cold callers. You're going to have to invest money. That's, I think, the part you have to understand is that you have to invest money no matter what. At least that's what I feel like. I know a lot of people say you don't have to, but I think for scalability, you do have to realize that it is investing back into that. And in some way, you're going to have to put it there to scale, because you're not going to have the time to do it all.
Yeah. Well, Grant Cardone, I don't know if some of my listeners follow Grant Cardone. He says that there's no money wasted in marketing. And whether you believe that or not, it's a good attitude to have, because the mail piece might might make it to the house, but then be handed off to a whole different owner. Like, I mean, hey, this came to me. I'm not interested, but you're in a pinch, so why don't you call this guy? Like, it's so crazy what can happen, and just having your face, obviously, if you use the profile picture and your data out there, it can pay. I mean, it can come back to you in like 4 or 5 years. So there's really, and any company has to market to stay alive. So, so the direct mail obviously is a marketing expense, and it's necessary to keep feeding feeding the engine, to keep closing deals. And I like what you're saying about, there's going to be more regulations about the robo dials and the text messages and stuff. That's pretty free. They're pretty much doing whatever they want right now, but that's going to be cracked down on. And I think a lot of big names or bigger companies, bigger investors have went to text messaging, as it was kind of the new frontier there for a while. But I think they're, like you said, they're going to have to come back to the old standard of direct mail, because that's the one that gets put on the fridge.
I was going to say, and I should say, we do have text messaging. I'm not dissing any of that. It's just that mail marketing's like the try and true. Like, it is goes through the ages. And I think if you add other things like the cold calling and the texting on top of it, that's great. My only caveat with that is, if you're just starting out to anyone, make sure that you allot the time that it takes to do them, because it can easily get away from you if you're doing so many different ways or trying to do so many different ways.
Yeah. I think it's definitely smart to have multiple approaches, right? Because you may get through with one, and the other one might work for a different person. So it depends, but I think definitely taking a multifaceted approach is recommended. But well, this has been super helpful. This has been a good conversation. I've learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to upping my game in the direct mail world for sure. Yeah. What as you've watched people succeed around you, whether it's just in business or real estate, direct mail, or wherever, what is the characteristic that you see that separates people that succeed from those that struggle and give up or fail?
Ooh, that's a good one. The people that I see succeed are the ones that surround themselves with others that are like-minded and that support each other. It's not competition. Ones that give back, definitely always I see succeed. And ones that constantly learn, and stay, and that are very humble with that. You can think that you know everything, but you really don't. None of us do. So the ones that constantly try to strive to be better, and to teach that to others, and kind of pay it forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. And that actually leads really well into another question. I always like to ask my guests what they're doing to give back, or maybe a goal that you have of something bigger that you want to do to give back. What are some things that come to mind?
There's so many things that I want to do to give back. I'm very big on the sustainability and environment. So really love the solar panels that you're talking about.
Yep.
But the biggest thing, I just want us to do something to where people feel cared for in a place that's safe. I know it's not something physical, but I've always strived to our culture here at Deal Machine to be very much and don't, you're welcomed. There's nothing wrong. Even if you fail, we still care about you. We want you to be here, and you don't fail, you just grow. Yeah. And so I hope to eventually be able to talk to people and coach people more through our platform, and to change lives. Honestly, that's the biggest thing I love already, is that we already are being there the one reason I chose Deal Machine is that I was tired of sales, so I didn't want to do it anymore. And in our mission statement, it says that we do not take a sales first approach to anything. We don't push sales on anyone.
Yeah.
And we're doing it for the good of the person. So that's how I want us to continue that.
Yeah. Well, I think you're in the right industry, I guess, right? I mean, because real estate, I believe, can truly change people's lives financially, which ultimately changes their lives and what they can do for the world around them. And that's huge. And obviously, direct mail and helping us learn how to market and find the deals for our real estate businesses is a huge part of that. So you're definitely on the right vehicle to hopefully help people out to accomplish their goals and so that we can all spend our time and money making the world a better place, which ultimately I think that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Elise, this has been great. I appreciate your time today. I have learned a ton. Hopefully our listeners have got some good ideas on their direct mail campaigns, and
Yes.
we'll obviously put in the notes to check out Deal Machine. Is there a place that they can go to learn more about the tactics and kind of the what you teach as far as how to do it? Where should we send them?
I'm a little biased, but our YouTube channel, because produce a lot of videos on there. And I always want to know which ones. I want to know which ones, if there's any I'm missing, if there's anything that I'm missing or need to stay up to date. But also, I'll definitely get you links to our trainings too, for just wholesaling in general, and also just how to start out. My videos, I am partial to them, but I really like our trainings because you get to actually be face to face like this with one of our trainers and get to ask them questions.
Yeah. Awesome. Perfect. We'll definitely make sure that's in the notes. Any final words of wisdom or advice before we sign off?
Well, I want to thank you for having me on. I've not been on a podcast yet, so this is my first podcast.
You nailed it. You nailed it.
Okay, good. And I just want to say, I always I'm blanking now, but just don't give up on yourself. If you're listening to this, there's going to be hurdles, but from every stumble, you pick yourself up and you're going to become even stronger. So I guess that's as cheesy as everyone has ever said that, but just know that I'm an affirmation. So just go Google Zig Ziglar and read half of his quotes and just do that.
Yep. Perfect. You know what? It's cheesy until you're down and you need it. You need to hear it. So I love that. Thank you so much. Awesome. Thank you. Hopefully we will stay in touch and we will maybe do this again sometime. Appreciate it.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks for listening to the Money Maven Project podcast. A true Maven shares knowledge with others. So be sure to share this podcast and leave a review. Thanks so much. And until next time, live life with intention.